This video is going to serve as an orientation for block number 2 or rotation number 2 that's starting on Tuesday, October 13th and running until Tuesday, November 10th. So I've created a new module in the hub. We're going to click the content. And it is here, Classroom Shop Procedures, October 13th to November 10th. So we're going to click into this, and I'm going to be discussing this. Now, this is basically kind of a condensed list of a lot of the school rules that are in place currently with some shop procedures added into them. So I'm going to be reviewing this point by point. It goes up to about 12. And we're going to start with the very first one that you're going to be exposed to when you get here, which is entering the classroom. So, number 1, when entering the classroom in the morning, you must sanitize your hands using the provided sanitizer. This also applies to returning from a washroom break and before leaving the classroom at the end of the period. Now, I do know that when you arrive to school, when you come in through your designated door, you do have to sanitize your hands. And someone might ask me, well, why do you require us to sanitize our hands when we arrive to the classroom? Well, in the time you arrive and get through the main doors to the time you get to the classroom, I don't know what you've done or where you've been. So you may have visited the washroom at that time. I don't know. So it's a safe practice for everyone to sanitize when they enter the shop lab before they take their seat. And the sanitizer will be provided. Same applies for returning from the washroom. You must sanitize, and you must sanitize again before you leave for either lunch or going to your study hall. Number 2, a seating plan will be created by the teacher on the first day of the cohort. The seating plan must be adhered to daily and for the remainder of the face-to-face learning rotation. This is for contact tracing purposes. So this is something that you're used to in rotation 1. You have a seat and you must not move around to other seats during class, sit in another seat on another day, and so on. Number 3, during morning and classroom announcements, talking is not permitted, as it makes it difficult for students and myself to hear important announcements. Now, we start the day with the opening anthem, and typically you would take your seat, we would listen to the announcements. There is not very many announcements these days. They're very short, but I can't have students yelling across the room to each other to carry on a conversation. We all have to keep quiet, myself included. We want to hear these important announcements, and then we'll begin the lesson. Number 4, this one is extremely important. Class attendance and punctuality is vital for success in technological education classes. The classroom door will be left open each day and will be closed and locked at the time the bell sounds to signal the start of class time. It is understood that the best of us can be late at times for circumstances beyond our control. Chronic lateness has no excuse. Students who skip class or who are constantly late will impact in poor learning skills in the report card and other further consequences if not corrected. Now we're going to talk about student absenteeism. And number 5, students will be trained on how to use equipment efficiently and safely for the practical portion of the course. If you are absent, there is no way to catch you up. We will aim to complete safety training for 2 machines per day as a cohort. This will include the teacher lesson, the teacher demonstrating its safe operation, and the student demonstrating the safe use and operation to the teacher, and the student completing a quiz on the machine in which at least an 80% must be achieved for the student to work independently in the shop later for the second project. There is no opportunity to make up the teacher's safety lesson on another day or at lunch. If you miss safety training for any particular machine, you can only use that machine under direct teacher supervision. So this is why attending class every day on your designated cohort day is extremely important. So missing a day here, missing a day there, it's really going to impact how you're going to be able to work in our shop. I can't let you work independently on equipment if you've missed the training. You haven't seen me demonstrate the piece of equipment to you, and I have not seen you demonstrate using the piece of equipment to me safely. And then also the quiz must be achieved. That goes without saying. Number 6. No food is to be consumed during our class time as per the school board policy currently in place for COVID-19. No drinks other than water may be brought to class. Water is not to be brought near any machinery and equipment and must be consumed in a container that is refillable at your assigned seat. No recyclable plastic water bottles. I find that these recyclable water bottles, they get crunched up and they get left under the desks and all over the room. So if you're bringing a container that you would typically bring home every night to go through the dishwasher or be washed in the sink, you're likely to take care of it and put it in your bag. Number 7, school bags, backpacks clutter the room and create tripping hazards for persons in close proximity to them. I know that you're not allowed to use your locker right now. Lockers are off limits, so you can bring your school bag belongings to class, but you must store them inside your desk. So where you sit, there is an open space, kind of like a little storage area that you can put your bag, and that way it's not going to be left on the floor where someone can trip over it. So if you're a person that needs to be reminded constantly to put your bag away out of the path of where people walk, you most likely are going to lose the privilege of bringing the bag to class. So you don't want to find yourself in that situation. You want to store it away when you take your seat in the morning, and you won't have a problem. Number 8, do not line up at the door at the end of the period. And I understand that because we're in essentially a double period, about 145 minutes in length. It can get a bit tiring near the end, and you want to get going, and you want to line up at the door or congregate in a group at the door, and there isn't space for that in our classroom. We don't have room for everyone to kind of keep distance. So you need to keep sitting at your seat. So when you're done your work and you've done your cleanup and put everything away, you need to take a seat at your seat and wait to be dismissed by me. So there will be no bell that will dismiss you. I will dismiss you at the designated time if everything is complete, cleaned up, and we're ready to go. So you want to make sure that you have everything done that you need to get done that I've asked you to do at the end of the class. Storing projects away, storing hand tools, doing a bit of cleanup, all that kind of thing must be done first. So that's very, very important. We have to leave the shop in a good condition for the next cohort to come in the next day. Number 9, profanity and/or inappropriate language should not need to be tolerated by anyone during class time. So you won't hear me use it, and I don't want to hear students use it. So that's all I need to say about number 9. Number 10, during our time in the shop, every piece of equipment must be sanitized after every student uses it with Oxivir TB and a paper towel. Now, Oxivir is the cleaning solution that is supplied by the board. This is what we're supposed to be using to clean materials and equipment that are shared in the classroom. So specifically, we're not going to be wiping down the entire machine. We're going to specifically be cleaning operating handles and start red cap off switches, which I'm going to be showing you next week. So basically, whatever you're touching with your hands normally is the only thing that we need to sanitize. 11, students will be assigned their own hand tools to be used by the student during the rotation. They will be stored with the student's name in a storage container or toolbox. So this is to cut down on sanitizing hand tools. You're going to be assigned your own hammer, for example. So you don't need to worry about cleaning it all the time. You can just store it in your toolbox. It'll be yours, and it will not be shared with others from the class. Lastly, and this one is also very important, your school-issued iPad will be required to be brought to class daily to complete machine safety quizzes through the hub, as well as access sketches and instructions needed for work to be completed in the shop. So all your safety training will be done digitally through the hub, so it won't be done with pencil or paper. I will not be assigning any paper most likely during this rotation. I may just assign a couple of things, but mostly everything will be done digitally. So those are our 12 procedures that we must follow beginning next week. So this is here for you in the hub to be accessed 24 hours a day. I've posted it. Let's talk about why the iPad is needed. We're going to go to Class Tools and we're going to click Quizzes. And here are all the machine safety quizzes. Now currently you won't be able to see them in student mode. I'm in teacher mode, so I see them, but I've got them hidden. So I'm only going to be releasing them as we need them. So, and the exam is here, but this is from last January, so it's not accessible either. So daily, we're going to be taking a look at 2 machines and completing the safety, and we're going to be completing the quiz. So on your iPad, you're going to sign into the hub. You're going to be clicking into Quizzes, and you're going to be selecting the appropriate quiz to do on that specific cohort day. And we're going to be aiming to do 2 a day. We should be able to get 2 done per day, no problem. If we can't get 2 done, then there's a serious problem with the class, and I don't anticipate something like that happening. Moving on. In content, as a part of our safety training, I've released this module as well. This is called Dressing Stock Procedure. And this is what we're going to be doing with our safety training. So we're going to be starting with the miter saw. We're going to be learning to create a rough measurement to cut a rough length to. We're going to be using the jointer, so we're going to be jointing a face and an edge. We're going to be using the thickness planer next, planing to a uniform thickness, so reducing the thickness evenly across the surface area of the face of a board. And then we're going to be learning to use the table saw, which is ripping to a finished width. And then lastly, the miter saw again, we're going to be squaring one end and then measuring and then cutting to a finished length on the opposite side. So that is how we dress a piece of lumber. So this is the procedure that we're going to be following. When we first measure and cut off a rough piece of stock, now this is exaggerated. It has a concave face and a convex face. So meaning concave, it curves on an inside radius, and the convex face curves on an outside radius. So what we're going to be doing is cleaning and flattening the concave face on the jointer, placing that clean face along the fence at the back, and then running it through the jointer again to clean the edge. So we're basically creating a 90-degree angle between one adjacent to one face and one edge. Then we're going to go down to the planer, place the jointed face down, and the planer has cutter heads above the machine, which are going to plane away that convex face that you see here, which is going to flatten the board completely. So by that time, we'll have one flat, clean face, one flat opposite face, and one clean edge, and we'll have one rough edge remaining. We'll go to the table saw, place that clean edge against the table saw fence, and then rip the opposite edge away. So that rough opposite edge will be ripped away on the left side of the machine, that exhaust side. And then lastly, we'll have two ends on the board here and the opposite end, and they're going to have to be cleaned up with the miter saw again. So we're going to place either edge against the fence of the miter saw. We're just going to take a little small cut off the end to clean it up and make it 90 degrees, make that end 90 degrees to either edge. Then we're going to measure from that clean end a specific length. We're going to flip the board over and we're going to cut off the other end to make it 90 degrees to either edge. So it's the best explanation I can give you right now by looking at these photographs. And it's going to make more sense when you're in the classroom and we're actually demonstrating how this all works. Now, here's a board that's dressed, so it looks like it has 90 degrees to all ends, to faces, to edges, and so on. So, to label this, the longest dimension on a board running here to here is considered a length. So, sorry this is not labeled. So this is something you can make a sketch of at home and you could label this. So we would call this length. The size between the longest and the smallest is considered the width. So the distance traveling from here to here. And then the smallest dimension is called thickness. So this is not referred to as height. A lot of students want to call this height because they're used to dealing in volume in math class, but in the construction shop, it is length, width, and thickness. And this is something that would cost you a mark on a test, right? I must have it referred to as the correct name. On this side, the largest surface area is referred to as a face on a board. The surface area between the largest and the smallest is referred to as an edge. So you would write edge here. And then lastly, the smallest surface area where you see the cupping rotation or the annual rings from a tree is referred to as an end. So we have two ends, two edges, and two faces on a board. And we have one thickness, one width, and one length. So some terminology I'd like you to have down pat before you enter the shop next Tuesday or Wednesday, depending on your cohort day. We are going to be referring to these notes right here, which are currently in hidden mode, but they'll be released as we need them next week. So these are the machine safety notes for every single machine. I'm going to be referring to these as I do my safety lesson. So I'm going to be going over all the points in all of these sheets and talking about them and discussing them as I go, and even adding in what I think is important that may not be on the sheet. The quiz that you're going to complete on the hub, which I mentioned earlier, is going to be a fill-in-the-blank quiz. And I will be giving you a word bank. So you'll have a word bank. You just have to be able to plug the right response into the blank. But remember, an 80% is needed. If you're not scoring 80% on these safety quizzes, you're not able to work independently later on project number 2. We have time to complete 2 projects during this rotation. The first project we're going to be doing together. And then the second project, I want you to be able to work independently on your own by just following my instructions on the hub in class projects. So that's how we're going to be starting things. So please review this video even twice if you need to. And remember, starting on Tuesday or Wednesday when you show up, you must bring your iPad. It is extremely important. And that's all I have to say. So, again, this was just a orientation to get ready for meeting face-to-face next week. And I would like you to just, again, review those points and I will see you after the long weekend. So until then, have a great long weekend, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.